And then stepdad was
Hold on, were you the youngest? So he left when your sister, his daughter, was what, 5?
She was 7, 6, and I was 3.
How'd that play out for you?
Well, I mean, that's a long story.
we got plenty of time.
Called my mom and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna quit school and I'm gonna try to do this songwriting thing. And my mom's like, say, and she's like, yeah, you need to come home. So I went home.
So she was worried.
Oh yeah, she sent me to the shrink.
Where'd you get pulled over? Right by William Cannon again?
It was on Mopac at like far west up that direction. That was my last arrest.
I was about to say.
So my 13th arrest.
So what finally did it?
Being found out by my wife.
That you were being an idiot like that? I was being an idiot,
yeah. I used to get high in order to write. I used to do cocaine or ecstasy in order to write. I just got to that point where I tried it once and I loved it and I liked what I wrote and people liked what I wrote. So I thought, oh, this is a great path. And it came to a place where I thought if I wasn't high, I couldn't write. And I started learning how to be like, high on the Holy Spirit. But the truth is, when I get to places where I start talking about my faith and I start talking about it in real time with somebody who also understands.
The Jackin' Around podcast is brought to you by Lone Star Dry Goods, a collection of handcrafted quality goods with a truly unique Americana vibe. Visit the world headquarters in the heart of downtown Abilene, Texas and Willow Park, Texas, near Fort Worth. And visit LoneStarDryGoods.com for more information.
Welcome to the Jackin' Around Show, hosted by two-time Academy of Country Music Award winner, Jack Ingram. Today's guest, Cory Morrow, grew up in Houston, Texas. After graduating from high school in 1990, Cory went off to attend Texas Tech University, where he dropped out of school to pursue his music career and moved to Austin, Texas. For the next 25 years, Cory sold hundreds of thousands of records, all without major label support, and has averaged about 150 tour dates a year. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes provided below are links to access the show on your favorite audio platform, Cory and Jack's bios and social media and website links. So this is where I'll usually toss it over to Jack, but first a personal message. I met Cory back in 1997. I was his booking agent. For the next 5 years, I continued booking bands until about 2012. It'd be fair to say without the opportunity Cory gave me, my professional career would look a lot different, much less being able to produce this show for Jack. On the same note, in my personal life, you'll hear Cory visit about and mention Ryan Lynch's name. Ryan was Cory's first bass player and my best friend for 25 years. The last conversation I had with Ryan was on April 5th of 2020. It was about me producing this show and this opportunity that Jack and I were talking about and producing this show together. Tragically, he took his own life the next day. Ryan, this episode goes out to you. Here's episode 22.
When was that picture up there? Is that 95? Who was saying?
It's 97.
The one up top. And where was it? Was it
But
what was the event?
Jerry Jeff's Labor Fest.
Okay. That's awesome.
It was fun.
That was like 97. I think that was like when we did our very first record. Paul Lee and Ryan Lynch and Pivito was booking us and managing us. It's just a reminder of
I'm a Scorpio.
The trips to south of the border.
Yeah. LC that. Where'd we go?
I just remember trying to eat one, right?
Where were we?
It was the Cunha, right?
They
had that bar.
Bruce Edwards.
It was is that what it was?
The Corona Club.
So I went down there and
Bruce Williams. What did I say? Bruce Edwards.
Boland was playing and I walked in and we just went down there to see him. I was at a ranch and it was like, oh, Jason's playing, so let's go down. So we went down and I just hammered drunk. And I had just started learning to do like the little pentatonic thing. And what was his name that played steel?
Oh, that long haired dude.
Yeah, he was super. He's like, his guitar sitting there. I was like, can I play guitar? Yeah. So I pick up and Jason's like, yeah, play. And I was like, what key is this in? Like, it's A. I'm like, oh, I know A. And I just start going and they're playing their show and I'm riffing and it's loud and it's like taking over and they're smiling like, and I know it was awful, but they're just smiling like, yeah, this is the show, people. This is it. You know,
that was fun going down there, man.
It was fun once
for that reason.
Yeah.
I remember I ended up at a bar. We played with Joe Ely down there one time. And after the show, we all walked down, him and Jesse Guitar Taylor and me, and we walked down past the main street.
The restaurant?
Down past everything.
Yeah.
The streets got dark.
Oh, yeah.
And
that place.
That was fun, man. That was... We had a good time. So how you been, man?
I've been good, man.
What have you been up to?
Writing. Trying to write for haven't had put anything out like 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah.
And the time between records is getting longer and longer, but I got 5 kids, so I have a pretty good excuse.
5 kids.
Yeah.
How old are they?
10, 9, 7, 7, and 4.
You're busy.
My wife is. I'm just trying to pay for it all.
Yeah. You're busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there a lot of diapers?
Yeah, they are. They have a couple of them are still in. This is funny. The 7-year-olds are still in pull-ups, but the 4-year-old is not.
Really?
It's a girl. The girl's like mature faster.
The 7-year-old boys?
Yeah, the twins are still in pull-ups at night.
Hey, man, let's figure this. At night, all right.
At night.
Hey, man, I was
Just
in
at
pull-ups
night.
until I was like 19.
Just a little bit of bedwetting going
At
on. Maybe Toast was in pull-ups in college, so it's all good.
I had a setup that it was like 1982.
Funny part is you're not lying.
I'm not lying.
I know.
We had an alarm.
It's not funny.
It was like a pad underneath the bed.
So that you'd get up and go to the bathroom?
That if you started to take a leak in the middle of the night, it would go beep, beep, beep. I slept through that fucker every time. I'd wake up and the whole fucking alarms were going off.
We've set alarms in the middle of the night and we get up and we go wake them up and say, you need to go to the bathroom. And then they go to the bathroom and then they don't wet the bed, but we still have them in pull up. So we're working on like
I think it's, I became an expert in that. You find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
When you spend the night with somebody and you wet their bed.
Oh, that's not, yeah.
And then
people don't appreciate that.
Then the whole
you come packing with a mattress protector.
When the whole school doesn't know on Monday, you know you got a friend.
Oh man. It was that long for real? How long?
I probably did it fairly consistently till I was 13, 14.
Man.
At night. And then
yeah, that's not honestly, that's not that uncommon. I mean, it's our doctor was telling us that kids can go that far, if not longer.
I think it's a developmental thing in your brain that just either kicking in or not.
If nobody gave you crap about it, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like if nobody like acknowledged that it was a thing, you'd be like, oh, and you just go until your body figured it out, right?
I remember watching The Longest Mile about that guy who ran a sub 4-minute mile. He wet the bed, and his mom used to. It was old school, so his mom would take the sheets and hang them outside of his window to embarrass him. Yeah. And the reason he learned how to run so fast, according to this, to the story, made for television movie, but it's a true story about the Olympic guy, and I can't remember his name. How he got so fast is that after school was over, he would fucking bust a move to run home
to get those sheets down before anybody saw. It was Pat Green.
It was Pat Green. Yeah, because he's so fast.
Right. Running home, that reminds me. For some reason, there was a day in the bus. I was elementary school, and the bus is heading down my street to drop some kids off. And I was on my bike, and I'm following the bus, and everybody's in the back waving, and I'm like, ah. And the bus hit the brakes, and I don't know how I missed it. But all of a sudden, I lock up the rear wheel, and I just go sliding, and I went, bam! And I went up into the bus and came down, and the bus driver had to get out and come check on me, and it was that loud.
That's great.
I've hit an 18-wheeler with a truck before, totaled the truck, ran into the back of it, and the 18-wheeler never stopped because it didn't know I hit it.
You totaled it?
I totaled my truck, yeah.
You have an interesting history with
you and I have a little bit of
moving vehicles.
A small.
How did you get into that so much, to cars and fast cars? And
I've always liked driving fast. I mean, Everybody's got their thing. I've always liked the adrenaline rush. I mean, you get on the back of a horse at 11 years old and things start to happen when you start going really fast.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is fun. And then motorcycles, dirt bikes. I had a dirt bike when I was young. And so
She's always been into it.
yeah. And then when I first started driving, it was like, how can I make this thing go faster? I remember swapping out the intake manifold with a 2-barrel carb for a 4-barrel quadrojet to make mine go faster. It didn't make it go faster, but it sounded cooler.
Right. That still sounds cool.
It is.
What'd you call it? A 4-barrel
Four-barrel
quadrojet?
quadrojet.
Yeah, man.
I mean, yeah, sounds good coming off.
Everybody needs a quadrojet.
I mean, who doesn't? And when it says jet, it's 1991, and you say quadrojet, and people are like, "Hey, you want to go out?
I'm going to go hop in my quadrojet.
You want a hot date?" There was a guy with a Ford Galaxy, and it had a 428. He called it something. It was a 428 something jet. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, it means it's fast, man. Oh, cool.
It means the chick's digging, bro.
Have you read Matt's book? Matthew McConaughey's book?
Some of it.
Green Lights.
Some of it.
So I started doing a book on tape, and it's changed my life because I read slow.
Right.
And it just takes me forever. And I'll do the ADD thing. Well, I'll get to the bottom of the page. And I'm like, shit.
Read it over again.
Yeah, I do the same. I read the whole thing,
man.
and I was in 5 different places, and I'm like, I have no idea what I just read. I read every word.
Isn't that great when that happens and you go,
I didn't metabolize any of it.
I gotta read that over again.
Exactly. The book on tape's amazing. It's worth every penny.
Yeah.
And you finish it within less than a week because I'm always driving. I put that one on, and I put on Rob Lowe's Things I Only Tell My Friends.
Right.
And now I'm listening to what is it? Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart.
What is that one?
John Eldridge, Wild at Heart. It's about finding that inner child inside. That's that the idea that men have been emasculated over a long period of time here in the West. That they're trying the culture's trying to crush just the natural desire to be a boy and to be a man and go out and conquer. And that the reason we like movies like Braveheart and Kingdom of Heaven and things like that, and where we go out and Sir Lancelot, go slaying a bunch of soldiers with your sword and save the lady and to serve higher powers, because that's what's in us. That's what the natural drive for us to do as men is. Right. And so it's talking about re-embracing that and going out into the wild and sort of embracing nature and finding your place in the world and your calling by God and that kind of thing.
That's a trip. I've always thought, or at least over the last decade or so, I came up with a theory that culturally, because of those issues and those natural instincts, we did have used physical force for a long time, whether it's conquering other men or conquering women. And I come from a strong family of women, and I've often thought of this as like, this is our head, and we're in the middle of the knee coming up from the girl going, "Fuck you, motherfuckers!"
As far as this time in history,
like we're about to hit impact on the knee.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about it like that.
Well,
I'm the same way. I have a family of strong women. I mean, that's my mother, my stepmother. All very strong women, and I grew up with women. I was like the only boy in my house.
Yeah,
I was. Upbringing was like lack of a father figure, and this book addresses that too. That there's a lack of a father figure.
Where was your dad?
A lot of these kids' houses. Oh, they divorced when I was 3, and he moved to San Antonio. So I would see him every other weekend, kind of thing,
Right, he was a divorced daddy daycare kind of stuff.
He'd come pick the 3 of us up, and then my middle sister's special needs, and so there was that dynamic as well. And then stepdad was
hold on, were you the youngest?
Yeah.
So he left when your sister, his daughter, was what, 5?
She was 7, 6, and I was 3. Or 7, yeah, no, I guess 6, 5, and 3, something like that.
And you were living in Houston, right?
Yeah.
So how'd that play out for you?
Well, I mean, that's a long story.
we got plenty of time.
Well, that's actually.
Well, I know it played out for you. It was when we first got to know each other, and Anna Jens was in my band. Your former guitar player.
Yep.
And we had discussions about that, not about your dad leaving you, but like your need for whatever that is. How did that play out?
Yeah, that need for that fatherly figure.
Yeah, something.
So I guess as I was growing up, I always remember wanting my mom to remarry my dad. That was just the thing. And then she met somebody else when I was 9, and she married him when I was 11, and stayed married to him until he died back in like 2004.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Joe, and
Good guy.
he loved us, and he was a good guy, but
Complicated.
But he had his demons like anybody else. But
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know he loved us, and he took care of us, and he would do anything for us. But our relationship was real messed up. I mean,
Was it a disciplinarian thing?
No, it was like I was a mama's boy, and he would berate my father and my mother in front of me, and it was just a different upbringings, man.
Yeah, I get it.
He had daddy issues as well, and mommy issues, and his brother. He had to identify his brother's body. His brother had been murdered in downtown Houston, stabbed to death by a pimp. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we smoked weed together when I was 18.
You and your stepfather?
Got drunk when I was 14 with him. And so, and went to the strip clubs with him when I was 18 and older. And so
Right.
it was that kind of relationship.
He wanted to be a friend.
He wanted to be my dad too.
Yeah.
He would always kind of lean in that direction, call himself that. And while doing that, telling me what a piece of crap my dad was.
Yeah.
That's
That's rough.
Didn't fare well. Well, and then wanting every guy that came into my life, be it my sister's boyfriends or whoever, I wanted them to be my big brother. So
Yeah.
always looking at everybody. Will you be my big brother? Will you be? And they're like, yeah, what the heck's wrong with this kid?
Yeah, you were that kid, that needy.
Yeah.
That
Mama,
guy-
and I was a mama's boy, and I was needy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
I was
being a mama's boy, you
confused.
probably were confused about what role a man's supposed to play.
That, and then the whole sex thing. Like, my mom gave me a book and said, go read that. And if you have any questions, come back and ask me. It had cartoon drawings on it.
Yeah.
And then I gave it back to her, and I was like, but she's like, you can ask your dad. No, I didn't ask my dad. I didn't have that kind of relationship with my dad. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was like, I just figured it out by looking in Playboy magazine and talking to my friends. You know?
Yeah. Well, I do wonder how many people really have experienced the talk with their father. I don't know. It's a tough talk to have, not because of the subject matter, but because kids are so reticent. Like, no.
They don't want to talk about it. Like my 7-year-olds and 9 and 10-year-olds, when they see a girl and boy kissing on TV, they all go, ah, and I'm like, guys, I hit pause. I'm like, what's he doing? What did you say?
I didn't say anything. I was
Maybe
turning off my phone.
he sneezed. I thought I heard the replay of what I just said.
Do you remember
Echo.
working
Oh,
with
yeah.
Toe?
Oh yeah. I watched some of the outtakes there earlier. And I was like,
It's like,
not
dude.
surprising. Yeah. God, I forgot what I was talking about. Damn it, Dale. Sorry. What?
So hold up. When you started playing music, you were in love. You were in high school, or was that when you were in Lubbock?
So Joe and my mom went to Cunha, and they bought me a guitar that was not quite that nice. Just real,
Just a Mexican
cheap
beater.
Mexican, beater. And he went in and they wanted. Like,
I wonder if we're allowed to say that these days.
Yeah, I guess or whatever.
We're one of those cheap Mexican beaters.
Hey, nothing I say is racist or ugly. It's just words that I use.
I've tried to get canceled. It doesn't work.
I'm not being. It's anyway.
I had this conversation with Bruce Robinson a couple years ago, and I said, "We're in the business of language, and everybody knows exactly what you mean when you go, man, that's gay. Even gay guys know that.
Exactly, they do.
It's funny. I didn't win the argument.
It's key. You didn't?
Well, I won it in my mind,
but Bruce won it with his words.
The culture's just too.
The culture's too sensitive.
They're just on that.
They're just too sensitive.
Can't win.
The culture's worried that they're worried. That's what it is. They live out of fear. So
Right,
he has a guitar. It's like $20. He went in there and said, "I'll give you $10 for it." And the guy's like, "No, it's 20." He goes, "All right, 15." The guy goes, "No, it's 20." And he's like, "You don't know how to do this." He goes, "Are you gambling, man?" The guy's like, "Sure." He's laid down $40 on the table, and he took a quarter out and he goes, "I'm gonna flip it. You call it. If it lands on what you call, you keep the $40 in the guitar. If it doesn't, I keep the $40 in the guitar." And the guy's like, "All right." So he flipped it. called heads, landed on tails, took the money, took the guitar, walked out, and then came back around the corner. He gave the guitar and money to my mom, came back around the corner and laid down $10. And he goes, that's what I wanted to pay for it. And then walked out. So that's the story of my
That's
first
pretty
guitar.
good, man.
It's a good first story. He made it right.
That's
and
good
so
negotiation.
I took lessons and then got a couple of better guitars, during that high school time. So I was about 14 or so, then get to high school and all through high school and taking lessons. And
playing what? Like, what were you into?
Zeppelin.
All that.
Yeah.
Classic
all
rock.
Yeah. Just, and Bob Seger and stuff like that.
You're younger, right? You're 47?
I'll be 50 this year.
50?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not that much younger. Okay.
No. I mean, it was the first real thing I had was a Bob Seger Silver Bullet Band cassette and I put it in my tape deck every morning going to
Night
school.
moves.
Yeah, exactly. Turn the page, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then my buddy got me into Zeppelin and the Stones and classic rock.
And were you learning Keith Richards parts?
No.
Like, were you learning the guitar?
Like I learned.
I've always noticed you're a good guitar player.
Well, I like to try to get better all the time. I feel like I can hold my own. I'm not as knowledgeable about what I'm playing as much as like you show me the part and I'll learn it.
Right.
No, I would learn like La Bamba, things like that, signature licks, basically. I wouldn't be able to sit in and play the whole song with anybody because I never learned the whole song.
Right.
I learned the pieces that I wanted to learn, and then I ADD out, and I go find something else to take my
That's like
attention.
A lot of us with our careers.
I laugh because I can relate. I keep trying to go into the car business for the last 5 years, but anyway. Yeah. So then when I got to college, I brought my guitar with me. And
Were you writing songs?
Brought an amp.
Or were you just
no. And I had been to my first Jerry Jeff Walker concert, so I knew of Willie and Kenny Rogers and Waylon and all those guys because my mom was a member of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. She was on the committees all growing up. I mean, we have a poster that's on her wall now that was on there when I was a preteen that I remember looking at and trying to memorize everything that it said on it. And it was just basically talking about the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, 1983 to 1984.
Wow.
And so, that was just one poster that I remember.
Who was headlining?
Yeah.
Willie?
Kenny Rogers, I think,
Conway
back
Twitty?
in that day. Yeah, exactly. So that was
Donna
the music
Summer?
that was on the radio at my house, but it wasn't the music that I was diving into. And I wasn't really like a music fanatic, I was just more into like trying to get girls to like me. So the guitar was a great tool for that.
That fits your person. That goes right alongside the fast cars and the learning to play licks, not really songs.
Yeah, a little insecure, not sure who I am, not sure who I'm supposed to be. What does a man look like? What does it mean when you become a man? Like, what are those definitions? What are those parameters? What are the lines?
Yeah.
So, but I took the electric guitar and amp to college and 12th floor of Weymouth in Lubbock. And man, we were on the end dorm room. I'd open up the door and turn everything up to 11 and just start playing those Zeppelin licks. And everybody come down, oh, what's up, man? Like, yeah. And then I would bring my acoustic guitar to the fraternity parties and hang out after. And then that kind of led to one of my buddies was like, I know this guy, he just learned how to play guitar, and but he's pretty good. And I'm like, okay. And they brought him in. It was Pat. And
So your friend was a liar.
Yeah.
I'm getting bad.
No, Pat will admit it. Pat was like, they really built me up. He's like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, well, neither one of us did. But I'd had a few more years of guitaring under my belt. So it was David Henry. You know David Henry?
Yeah.
We sat around David Henry's house, and he had a wall. His entire wall was CDs, right? I mean, the entire wall was CDs. And so we'd just sit there and we'd pull off all these CDs and we'd play them. And then, there's no internet. We didn't even have a tuner for the guitar. So we're trying to learn these songs just by ear. And Pat, who just picked up the guitar, and me, who kind of paid attention, and we get most of it wrong, but we get enough of the chord correct to where we could kind of sing the right note. And so we'd write the words down on a spiral notebook and put the D, G, C, and then turn a page for the next set of words. And we had a music stand, and they got us a gig, and we didn't even know what a gig was. We're like, we need to get y'all a gig because there's no girls at David's house. We'd hang out there all night, be making drinks, and we'd learning songs, and everybody's singing. And they're all go, look this one up and learn this one. Okay, so we work on that one for a few hours. And then they got us a gig, and man, everybody showed up. All these girls and guys showed up. And this is about the time that, so when I graduated in 91, my buddy Clint Edwards brought me your CD.
Yeah.
And he put it on at his mom's house. You know Clint, I think.
Yeah. And Aunt Karen.
Yep. And put it
His
on
mom.
at your house, and at his house, sorry. And we were just like, who's this? It's like, this is Jack, this, son, and it's a friend of the family. And wow. And so then when I went to college, then you came and you opened for Jacko Pierce at the Depot Warehouse.
Yeah, man.
I was there, and we were watching. It was just like, so this is something people can do? I'm like,
Yeah.
So he went to college and he played with his first college friends, and this is something and I was like, and they're like, you should give this a try. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. And so that's when we really started like, well, maybe if we work hard, like, let's go really like, forget going to college. Let's go to this college.
Right.
So we'd go to David's house every night. It was once a week. Then it became every night. And that's when the studies started to fail. The grades started dropping. And, but we went in there and started trying to write. And that's when, and then I actually had a fraternity brother. He died in a car wreck. And it was the first person that I had really known other than like your grandmother or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that I was close in age to that had passed away. And so that struck me, and I wrote a song about it, and then, put it on a CD years later. But it was.
Did you know then, like when
at
you
that
wrote
point,
that song about your buddy, where you're like,
I knew
it.
different. It was an outlet for me. That it was a way of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up. So since I was 8 or 9 years old, like right when my mom met my stepdad, I started going to therapy. And I was in the elementary school. Remember they used to have the behavioral therapists?
Oh, yeah.
You go into their office and they had
They
sand
have those
and
little
toys to play
and
with.
things.
I was seeing that person since 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Maybe even first. And so it was always
Did
part
you have
of my
like,
life.
did you have like learning disabilities?
No, I was just extremely emotional.
Just one
and
of
just
those
like
kids?
I was, when I was about 12 or 13, I was semi-suicidal, but I was just really, I was very not in touch with my emotions necessarily. I couldn't like identify what was going on, but I was very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just constantly having issues with things. Mama's boy, whatever you want to call it. But I was always seeing a therapist talking about it, trying to work it out and figure out what was going on. And my stepdad's like, quit being a pussy. That's the answer. That's what I was looking for.
Duh, why didn't you say that earlier, Dad?
Dang it. So yeah, Dad. So so I mean, there was just a lot of therapy going on, and then
So your mom was into like
so all through high school,
she was into that
she was
scene,
like,
though.
this is good. Yeah. Cause
Yeah.
in the 80s, it was it. You do therapy. It wasn't psychiatrists, it was psychologists. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
was just talkings. There was no medicine.
I remember my parents
So we
were into
talked.
John Bradshaw.
Yeah.
He was a Houston guy.
Yeah. Well, I saw Ed Reitman.
Yeah.
Did you know that name? Anyway. So there's a whole other sideline of stories to go along with that as well. So fast forward to college, and then I'm like, I'm really focusing on the writing now, and trying to like realizing that this was a new therapy for me was the writing and getting this stuff out. Like now I have a way to express it that was better than going to a guy's office and talking to him. Man, I could pour it out and find another way to exude all that.
Yeah.
And so when I came, I called my mom and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna quit school and I'm gonna try to do this songwriting thing. And I have no idea what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna move to Austin. And I'm gonna, like, all my friends from college are there. From high school, half of them went to A&M, the other half went to UT.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move to Austin, and I'm gonna start playing for the fraternities there, like Jack Ingram did, and I'm gonna see if I can't follow that path and try to make something of it. And my mom's like, say, and she's like, yeah, you need to come home. So I went home.
So she was worried.
Oh yeah, she sent me to the shrink, and I've told the story on a record. Like I went in there and I made recorded a couple of songs on cassette, and I gave it to him, and he had a cassette player in his office, and he put it on, played it, listened to it, and he was like, yeah, I can see that you have some, there's something there. And I'm like, all right, awesome. And he goes, so what's your plan? I go, well, I figure 2 years, I'm going to go get a job at where Dunkin' Donuts or wherever. And I'm going to have a day job. And then in the evenings and the weekends, I'm going to work on trying to get gigs. And I'm just going to keep trying to figure it out. And he goes, you're 21. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You have a plan. There's something here. I think you should try it. And I was like,
Bet your mom was happy.
I was like, man, bullshit worked. I was like, holy cow. But it wasn't BS. I mean, it was,
it's not BS.
I had it in my heart. I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be in school. I wanted to do this. With all of my heart, I wanted to do this. And so my mom and my stepdad come back in the room. He calls them back in. I'm just sitting on the couch. Stepdad crosses his legs, arm around my mom. He's ready to tell them that I'm going back to school, right? That Cory's just, off his rocker, and thank God you brought him when you did. He goes, no, I think we need to let him give this a shot. And my mom, and my stepdad are like, and my stepdad's like, we pay you $300 an hour. And it's just like, this is the answer you're giving us?
Yeah,
it's
man.
Like,
If you're good, you can't buy them.
So that was it, man. That was the beginning of the end, so to speak. But I moved to Austin and moved in with my cousin in Lakeway, lived there for about 6 months, and then he kicked me out. And then
So did you get a day gig?
I did. I worked for a courier company here in Austin, Quicksilver Delivery. I worked in the office, and then when they really needed help, I'd go out and drive. And so it was perfect. And I told the guy from the beginning, I said, this is what I'm trying to do. And he goes, half of my staff are aspiring musicians. So this is Austin. So great. I said, well, sometimes I might want to maybe take off early on Friday or whatever. Can we make that work? He goes, we'll make it work. So he was awesome. But I got depressed, as you can imagine, and I would drink too much and then smoke too much. And then I wouldn't come into work because I was like, what am I doing? I don't want to work. Mm-hmm. And then I'd get fired. And then, Pivito comes along.
Were you playing gigs though?
I was doing burgers and beers, like mostly at the Capsig House and the KA House.
Yeah.
They were pretty much hiring me every week. So I had like 2 gigs a week. And then I started to get like Pete's Piano Bar and then Hang'em High Saloon. We started getting regular gigs. Pivito comes along, starts booking us and it would go like this for about 6 years. Once a year or twice a year, I would either quit or he'd fire me, and it would oscillate. It would just be like things would be going good. We'd get some gigs in. And I was like, things are good. We're making some money. I'd go to the boss and be like, I'm going to quit. We're just working too much. I don't want to put you out. He's like, okay.
You'll be back. They always come back.
Like a month later. I mean, less than a month later, it would always happen. I'd run out of money and I'm like, I got to pay the rent. And I'd come in and he'd take me back. And then I'd get depressed and I wouldn't show up for work and he'd fire me. And we just went through this dance for 6 years. And then the last time I quit, right? Because we were doing good enough. And he said, so we'll see in 2-3 months this time. And I was like, I don't think you're going to ever see me again other than to come back and tell you.
How'd you know things were going well enough to do that? Like, how'd you, was it just numbers?
I think this was, I had paid all the bills for the month. And I was paying for not just myself, but a couple other people that living in the house and kind of thing. 2 car payments. I was paying for all this stuff, and I paid all the bills for the month, and we still had $2,000 left in the bank. And I was like, and then we had more shows on the books. Yeah. And so I just looked at it and said, I can make this work. Like I could live off that $2,000 for another few months.
Why did you have 2 cars?
It's confusing. I mean, it's complicated.
This car thing gets you into some shit.
It has begun. Yeah, it's true. It's true. The cars cost me a lot of money.
Were those fast cars, chick magnet cars?
Yeah. There was a Porsche.
And you had 2 of them.
Well, I was paying for, it's complicated.
That's all we got here.
I was paying for somebody else's. We had a agreement organization. It's complicated. It didn't work out.
And were you selling out the Hang'em High Saloon? Like, were you at that point where you started to sell tickets?
I got that gig to open up for everybody. John Dixon made me the house band for Hang'em High. So I got to open up for Willie, Merle Haggard, the Bellamy Brothers.
Was that the one on 6th Street?
Yeah.
Where we played upstairs?
You, Chris Wall.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't upstairs. It was right on the window.
Right in the window. That's right.
Yeah. And so we were the house band. Jens was playing guitar and we were doing that so I had Tuesdays at Pete's Piano Bar on the same block, Wednesdays at Tap and College Station, and then Thursdays at Hang'em High. And then we'd do fraternity sorority parties Friday, Saturday. So we were booked up 5 days a week for like a month or 2 out. Mm-hmm. And so when that started happening,
what's this, 94, 95?
It's 95, 96.
Yeah.
So 97, 98, I quit my day job in like 98, 99. Is when it all kind of started coming together to the point that I could quit. And then, that frees you up to smoke more weed and drink more beer and play more video games.
Yeah, what was going on with that? With like you go from kind of a structured thing where when you start fucking up, you're in therapy and kind of reining it in or trying to, but when you're mid 20s or early 20s,
and you don't have to go to a job, you don't have to be
there's none of that
responsible for
structure.
anything. Yeah.
So what happened? Like, did it get out of hand?
Oh yeah, constantly. I mean, it was constantly on hand. I would drink or drug myself into just serious depressive stupors. I was living on a couch in a buddy's house, and at one point, and went downtown to 6th Street. Had a baseball bat in between the seats, and went out drinking at the bars, and then got in my car and was just gone. And I'm trying to drive home, and like somebody cut me off, and I remember putting it in park and getting the bat out and like chasing the guy down with my bat.
Oh.
Then I got back in the car and drove to Jack in the Box and got everything on the menu, and then went back to the house and started eating. And in the middle of eating, I just broke down, like fell apart. I just had a nervous breakdown.
Really?
Yeah, I just started crying and screaming, and I was throwing food all over. I was just like, what have I done with my life? Who am I?
How old were you?
25. Yeah, midlife crisis at 25.
Well, living like that would be midlife.
Right? I mean, it was just a constant, and one of the things that I never really learned how to do was manage my money. And so
I was about to say, you were living on a couch, but
Yeah.
you're making all that, you had gigs through the roof.
Yeah.
So where were you putting your money?
Stuff.
Under the pillow, or?
I honestly, I wish I knew. It was just, I threw a lot of money away. We'd go to,
Because you get paid in cash pretty much back then.
We'd go to Walmart, after the gig, to get supplies, and I'd drop $2,000 or $3,000 at Walmart just buying stuff for everybody. Because all of our guys are like, man, I need some new jeans and new shoes. And I was like, go get whatever you want. Like, we need a new Xbox for the bus. We need some games.
Oh, I bet a therapist would love talking about that.
It was awesome. But they did. They made money off me too.
You were trying to be the dad that you never had, kind of father figure for these,
I
for
never
these little
even thought
monkeys
about
you were
that.
hanging out with.
I never even thought about that. That's exactly what I was doing.
It's true. Because it probably felt good.
It did. I really enjoyed being able to do that for folks. I knew what it was like to not have it and wish somebody would give me the opportunity and loan me the money to do something. And we had people loan us money to make our first CD.
Yeah.
And then years later, I didn't pay a lot of them back. I lost the notebook that had their names and stuff and what I owed them.
Yeah.
And one of them was my uncle, and he called me up one day and he goes, and he's a bazillionaire. He calls me up and he says, you never did pay me back for that record. And this was like, 10 years ago. So I had 15 years into having some pretty good success and a lot of things positively happening. And I was like, I just forgot. I mean, I literally, and there was a list of those.
Right.
Paul Lee's uncle was one. Margaret Greer's father was one. It was just like this litany of people that I'd $1,000.
10 grand to make the first
It was
record?
like 500 to $1,000 was
Yeah.
each one of them.
I remember. That's how I did mine too.
And so my uncle's like, why don't you come over? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I came over and I paid him. And he goes, I just want you to know, thank you. And I'm never going to loan you another dollar. And I just want this to be a lesson for you, because it would have been so easy for you to do this, and I would have lent you money till the day that I died.
Yeah.
But I'm never gonna ever again. And he goes, and it's not because I don't want to, or that I don't believe in you. And I was like, it was like one of the worst days, but it was also one of the best, and it was a lesson I got from my dad's brother.
Mm-hmm.
So there's those kind of things happening, but I just was never good at. So as much as I didn't like Joe, I ended up kind of being a lot like him, right? So I'm like, I don't want to be anything like that guy because I think he's a piece of crap. But what do I end up doing? Drinking, hanging out at strip clubs and smoking a lot of weed and wanting everybody to love me by spending lots of money on him. That's exactly what he did. And he had nice cars, nice house. He wore rings, and he liked for people to see him and be loud and
he was
popular. He was like, he walked in the room and everybody knew it. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be that, but I hate you.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
That's a common thing.
So
Attracted and repelled by the same issues.
So it played out like that for years. When I was 25 and had that breakdown, I came home to him and my mom, and they sent me to the Methodist Hospital, 7th floor. I think he told me he spent $35,000 on me for that week to be in the hospital, to go through depression and rehab. And it was really good. It was
it
really,
a detox situation?
Yeah,
or was
yeah,
it
for sure. But it was also like heavy
mental
therapy.
Yeah.
And after a couple of days of sobering up, I remember I called Lynch, Matt, and I was like, hey, I'm in here. Lynch and Pito and Pinkernell are like all on the phone, like listening. I've got one phone, so they're all listening. And I'm like, yeah, I put myself in the hospital, and I'm not gonna be out until after the weekend. And he's like, we have a gig this weekend. We're playing.
Oh, I bet Jens was freaking out.
Lynch was livid. And I was like, I am sick. I've got serious issues. And he goes, what are you talking about, man? Just get over it. Get over here. He's like, Lynch did not understand. Like, he was not having it. He's like, just pull your boots up and just come on.
We got a gig, dude.
We got a gig. And I was like, I know, man. I want to be there, but I can't. And it's like, it was tough. But, you spend a couple of days sober, and then you go into these therapy sessions with other people that are in there, right? And man, these people have serious freaking problems. I mean, there was a guy in there dying of AIDS.
Right.
And he was younger than me. And it was just like, and he was depressed. He's like, what do I have to live for? Because I know I'm going to die in the next 6 months. And it was just like, okay, you know what? I'm basically being a mama's boy and a crybaby, and things aren't going my way. And so I'm going to get sad and depressed and drink too much and smoke too much. I think I can fix this problem.
Right.
So go sober up.
So was that the end of that issue?
Hell no.
Yeah. So you took another decade and a half, right?
Yeah. Multiple levels of what my wife and I would call those the missed what do they call them?
Jesus, the missing years.
No, it was wake up calls.
Yeah,
like a wake up call. Like, wake up, you got everything you need in front of you, and you're wasting it. But no,
God, I wish I knew what you were talking about. I can't identify with that at all.
So Jack, tell me what's going on.
This ain't about me, brother.
It's my show, Bubba. It's my show. So you remember that black car, that one we tore out?
We drove
out of Guero's, and you go, mother, this is a freaking race car.
I know.
I was like, oh yeah, Jack likes it.
I was sitting in back, I think.
Oh, you were right up front. You had your hand
okay,
on the
and you were doing the.
I punched it. When you punch
whoop-de-doos.
it lights them up. And I came out of Guero's like that, and we did fishtail out of there, and everybody at Guero was like, douche.
I was like, you got issues, brother.
Douche. And you're like, man, what's your problem? Right. And I just love the idea of drifting and stuff.
It is fun, especially when you know. I didn't know you could drive, so I thought we were fucking dying.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did. You're like, all right, I'm glad you can drive.
I was like, dude,
I want out. In fact, the reason I got that car is because the car before it was a little Porsche, and I had totaled it coming home at 6:30 in the morning, wide awake from a party, and my buddy Clint Edwards was sitting next to me. And he had been drinking all night, so he was barely awake, unaware of what I had been doing all night. And then we coming down the overpass from Mopac to 290, heading out towards the wide Oak Hill, towards the light at William Cannon.
I know where you're.
So back in the day, you just come down off that thing, and then you get straight shot to the light at William Cannon, and there's nothing. And we were doing about 120, and we had that CD by Jet, Cold Hard. Gotch,
Oh yeah, Jet the band.
Yeah. So that was jamming, and it was whatever the current big hit on was, and that was cranked up. The top was down, and me and Clint were like, having a ball, and
adrenaline junkies.
I went down and was messing with it, and I look up, and we're at the light. It was yellow, and I was doing 120. So downshift. I avoid a couple of cars. I avoid oncoming traffic, and then we got sideways, and everybody saw us coming, and they stopped.
Luckily,
sideways through the intersection, and then there was a like kind of little makeshift, wooden building where a guy was selling pottery. It's not there anymore. I went through it and took out all that, and then landed in the woods, and we were both okay. But that was like, I remember waking up, and the cop came, and he was like. Anyway, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but he was like, I can smell that you've been drinking, but you look like you're awake. And I was like, yeah, it works. That stuff works.
Very observant of you.
Sure.
Drugs work.
He's like, you look like you're okay. Yeah. You seen the movie? Was that movie Denzel Washington where he's a pilot?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Crash or the one where he flies the plane upside down.
Yeah, he flies plane upside. Flight. That's what it felt like. I was just like, yeah, I'm fine. Trust me. Everything's good. So we went back to my house and both just broke down, because
So the cop died. There was no repercussions from the police?
No.
It was just a one car accident.
And we got through that. That didn't really stop anything. And then, so I got that BMW because I traded in the Porsche for something faster. The BMW.
Yeah.
M3.
I was going to say you needed something faster.
Right. You go from one, I needed to step up. The problem was I wasn't going fast enough.
That's right.
If I had been going fast enough,
you would have missed the
I would
building.
have gone through the yellow light and not hit the red.
It would have been green.
Exactly. Thank you. Green light. Here you go. That's what he says at the end of every chapter of his book. If you get the audio, on McConaughey's book, he goes, "Green light."
Sometimes his voice just stays in my head.
We'll talk about that.
Blessing and a curse.
So yeah, then got that car, and then the big night happened. That was like
the one that made the news.
Yeah, that was like 2004, I think.
And you weren't married yet?
Mm-mm. No, I met her not long after that. But that was a bad one. I was, I would get depressed, right? And I'd go drinking. And then, cause I just wasn't happy. I had all this stuff and we had success, so to speak, but I was always comparing it with other people's success and thinking it wasn't good enough. And everything I was doing wasn't good enough and wasn't good enough. And then I'd go downtown and get drunk and try to pick up girls and then, strike out. And so then I go find somebody who had some cocaine and I do that. And then that woke me up because that had a pretty good history of waking me up. And then I got in the car and my ritual was get drunk, get high, get on Mopac, get over 100 miles an hour, turn around at 2222 and go back down and then go out to Oak Hill where I lived every night at 2:30 in the morning. So that was just what I did.
Right.
Had pretty good success with it until that night. Yeah, I'm cruising about
Where'd you get pulled over? Right by William Cannon again?
It was on Mopac at like far west up that direction, Spicewood Springs, far west, somewhere like that.
You go all the way up there.
Yeah. So that was it. It was a good night.
Was that okay? So
that was my last arrest.
I was about to say,
so my 13th arrest.
A lot of people say that some wake up call comes and happens like that.
Well, that wasn't.
It didn't.
That wasn't the last one either.
I was about to say that didn't.
They didn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, so I've been through a lot in the last 10 years.
So what finally did it?
Being found out by my wife.
That you were being an idiot like that?
I was being an idiot, yeah. That I was, yeah.
So it was an ultimatum that she's like, hey, you're either going to change this or I'm going to leave?
No. The ultimatum was tell me the truth and we'll have a chance. And if you lie to me, then we're done.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd never heard anybody speak like that or give me that kind of an opportunity. And so,
right.
Yeah,
because the truth doesn't
tell the truth and we might have a chance. We might have a chance. So it's like,
it's that thing that you never believed. Like when your parents said, tell me the truth and you won't get in that big trouble.
But she didn't say we won't. She said we might. And that was the difference for me. It was like, she didn't say we won't get divorced. She said we might not, but tell me the truth. And so I was like, how am I going to get out of this? Like, what am I going to, because I'm not going to tell her the truth, like there was too many truths to tell. And she thought it was just one truth. And so I sat there and was like trying to figure out what to say. And my head's spinning. I was so hungover. I'd just gotten off a plane from Denver and gone up to Denver and been out all night, went to a Broncos game, got all messed up, ended up in a titty bar and then back to the hotel.
The titty bar. Now, what is that again?
Yeah, it's a gentleman's club. It used to be called gun clubs. Now they're gentlemen's clubs.
So you're home and it's time.
Yeah, she picks me up at the airport. Wants to see the phone. Going through the phone trying to find something, and so then the way she laid it out was just like, I know you've done something. Tell me what it is, and we'll have a chance. If you don't, then we're done. And I've got a 2-year-old and a brand new 1-month-old. And
that's heavy.
I'm sitting there. And so what's about to happen is what happened with me and my sisters and my dad. They got divorced when I was basically the same age as my 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, I'm about to just continue the cycle. And so my head was reeling, man. I was just spinning. I was just, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to tell her? And then, I felt like this real weird warmth come over me, and I just sat there and I like physically, my memory is there that like the roof opened up and this light kind of shone down. And I know that didn't happen, but that's my memory of it. And then I felt this, like these words, like just basically telling me, encouraging me to tell her to confess. And so I was like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know. So I'm thinking I'll just go with what's probably the most likely. And so I told her,
this particular truth.
This happened. And she's like, thank you for telling me, but that's not it. So then it began, and that was, several hours of me trying to figure out what's next. And then just, was it this? Was it this? Was it this? And when I finally laid everything that I had out on the table, and it wasn't it ended up being something else that ended up not being something that I actually facilitated, but that I attempted to facilitate. And so like I got all those secrets and trying to keep it from hers, and I lay them all out. And then, so there was this sense of relief for me, having been freed of all those lies that I have to like tiptoe around. And at the same time, I'm watching her basically carry all of them. So there was a huge picture analogy of what I learned later in my walk is like the picture of Christ taking all of our sins on his shoulders for us. So I go and I call, when it was all done and there was nothing else to tell, I went into the music room where the futon was, where I was going to stay for a few months, and picked up the phone and called my buddy Paul Lee.
Yeah.
And I said, man, he was the first member of my band. When I played the KA house, I'm playing by myself, playing Road Goes On Forever. And I see these dudes, they're pledges, and they got on blue jeans and white shirts, and they're lined up and they're walking through the pledge master was displaying them to all the attendees of the party at Burgers and Beer on Thursday. And they're all walking through the yard, and he breaks the line and runs up and he starts singing the harmonies with me. And I was like, he's like this tall.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, dude. And I said, do you play an instrument? And he jumped back in line and he goes, oh yeah. It's like, awesome. So he came over, and he got Lynch to come over. And so that was our first band, was the three of us. And we would do Pete's Piano Bar and all kinds of things, just a 3-piece acoustic. Lynch would play bass, and me and Paul would play guitar. So Paul was always, like whenever I wanted to say GD in a song, or I had any kind of damn or F and S, and he would encourage me not to put that on the record.
Yeah. Because
he's like, man, it's just, and so I knew he's a Bible thumper, but he's a good guy. And so I knew I just something put on my heart to call him. So I called him, and I was like, I'm probably going to get divorced. I don't know what I'm doing. My world's falling apart. And I was like, can you meet with me? Will you talk with me? Will you help me? Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what I'm asking, but look, I need help. And I think that you might be the guy to help me. And he's like, absolutely. So
picked a winner there.
He met with me every Monday for over a year. And he just started walking me through, for me, it was, I picked my Bible up and I started looking in the Bible, and I was like, this is the one thing that I hadn't tried. And then I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, so I just shut it and set it down. And it's like, I've tried everything else to make myself happy, and I'm clearly not. I'm a mess, and I don't know where to even begin. And that's the one thing I never did try. So, he started walking me through it all. I started to meet other men like him. I started to go to Bible studies, men's groups, weekend retreats, and things like that. And that began the healing process and began the liberation of all this stuff that I was holding over myself and beating myself up with, saying, you're no good, you're not good enough. You need to go do this so people will like you. And I got to really look in the mirror and look back at my life. And like you were saying, those guys, I was buying stuff for guys to be their daddy. I was analyzing every aspect of my life from when I was really, really young to that point, and realizing what was missing and where there were issues and why. Like, and all those years of therapy that helped as well to be able to. And now I'm sober, and I'm being introduced to this book that I was afraid of, and walking through the idea of having faith, and I wanted to believe, like I wanted that to be the thing that mattered. And so I was always afraid if I went down that road and I found out that I didn't believe, then I'd be really screwed.
Yeah,
then
man.
I'd be dead. I always, that's what I thought.
Wow.
Because I was on almost a suicidal track in general, just the way that I was living. But if I found out that there wasn't a God and then none of this mattered, it'd be like, I'm going out in a blaze of glory. You know, like there'd be no point. And so thank goodness I found out that I do believe he's there and that it does matter and that there is a better path for me, that there is a better purpose for me, that there's better opportunities for me. And a lot of it has to do with me getting out of the way, me submitting, me finding humility and putting others first, my wife to be specific. And so changed everything. My understanding of marriage, my understanding of fatherhood, my understanding of sonship, all of it. And so it all got laid out over the last, the wonderful thing is like, the journey is never ending. So I used to get high in order to write. I used to do cocaine or ecstasy in order to write. I just got to that point where I tried it once and I loved it and I liked what I wrote and people liked what I wrote. So I thought, oh, this is a great path. And it came to a place where I thought if I wasn't high, I couldn't write. And I started learning how to be like, high on the Holy Spirit. But the truth is, when I get to places where I start talking about my faith and I start talking about it in real time with somebody who also understands and has faith, and we have really like just nitty gritty conversations where we're sharing the things that he's done in our lives and the paths that we've taken and the choices that we've made and how God's been in the middle of it and shaping us and what's happening now. I get high on that conversation and then we write. And so it's like I traded one drug for the one drug that never ends. There's scripture about him saying, if you drink that water, you'll be thirsty again. But if you drink from my fountain, you'll never thirst again. And the reality of that is like when you start drinking from the fountain of the word of God, like you get high and you don't, the high doesn't get diluted over time. Like the first high, the 53rd high is just as good as the first high. It's like you're chasing the dragon. We don't have to chase the dragon. You've got the dragon. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's, so that began that whole process. And over the last 10 years, it's just been an up and down of my understanding and my walk. And so now I quit drinking and doing drugs that day and chasing women that day. And so taking all that stuff out of the equation, I knew the decision to chase women was always in me, but the actual committing of it was when I was drunk or stoned or high.
Right.
So I was like, okay, in order to help me stop doing that, I'm going to remove alcohol, which will remove drugs because I don't want to do drugs when I'm not drunk. And so maybe if I get rid of those things, it'll help me not to make that decision to chase that girl. And it has helped tremendously.
Absolutely.
The desire is always there. But a sober mind has a lot better ability to look past the end of your nose and recognize the consequences of the action you're about to take.
Right.
A drunken stone mind's like, this is going to be great. So that's been the journey. And
how has it been? I know that it is reflected in music, but how has it been to you reflected in your music as far as that goes? Because that would scare me.
Yeah.
To think
it scared me.
Well, because, there's a thing about Christian music that sometimes is like, come on, man.
Exactly.
So how did you reconcile that and how does it fit?
Played out?
How does it fit in your songwriting?
So in the beginning, I was not sure how. I didn't know what was happening. I knew that things were changing, and I isolated myself from a lot of people because I needed to figure out how to be me again and not have those influences because I was too weak. I was like, if I hang out with that guy, I'm gonna end up making some mistakes. So I would, I'd separate myself, and then as the writing started to change, it wasn't so specific to like Jesus this and Jesus that. It was more of just like there's something more, and I'm finding a better way and that kind of thing. And so it would play out in a little bit at a time. But anybody who knew me or knew what I was going through could, read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the years have gone on, and after a couple of years of really walking in this new path, and really believing it, like coming to the place, there was a night, because like I said, I wanted to believe it was true, but there was just a part of me was like, I don't know if I want to take this leap, and I don't know. I think this is right, but I'm not 100%. And something happened. I was at a retreat, and I just remember like coming to this place where I'm like, I was in the shower and I was just standing there and I was like looking at my hand, and I just kept just looking at my hand and just thinking to myself, like, this didn't just freaking happen. This is not, dust and rocks and a perfect like coincidence. That I just couldn't believe that. And everything that I'd been listening to and throughout the weekend, and so I was like, there's this Billy Graham, had said that he came to a place where with his faith, where he was holding the Bible, the Word of God. And he had a really close friend with him in his walk, and his friend had decided that he didn't believe, and he became an atheist and has devoted his life to atheism. And Billy was like, he was trying to convince Billy to come with him. And he was like, you can't prove that that's the true Word of God. And so that was enough for that guy. He was done. And so Billy was like standing there and he's holding, and he prayed and prayed and prayed. And he finally just said, God, I'm going to take this as your word on faith. And I'm going to ask that you would consecrate that oath. And so that's the rest of his life is, history. And so I remember just sitting there thinking, I don't know if I believe that you're real. I don't know if I believe that you're, all about your son is real, and that all this that I haven't even read yet is real, but I'm going to take that it's real on faith. I'm just going to believe it. I'm going to take that leap. And so I did. And so now it's been woven into the songs that I'm writing, in the sense that I just want to write stuff that's real. I don't want to write stuff that that just rhymes and sounds good and makes you feel good. I want to write stuff that resonates because it's based on fact and truth, and the reality and truth of what I believe to be God's truth. So it's not Christian music in that sense. And now a lot of my shows, things that we do now are what I call testimony shows. So I'll start off playing the songs that we recorded back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then I'll stop for a second and I'll start telling the story of why that song is important and where it led to. And then I tell them the whole story I just told you, except in a shorter version. And I essentially give my full testimony and I'm completely transparent about my marriage and things like that. And so it throws some people off because they're sitting there like, I thought I was coming to,
I thought we were going to rock with
songwriter
Cory Morrow.
show. Yeah. And I basically tell them that I've everything in my life has changed and it's for the better. And then here's some new stuff. And then I go back to playing the old stuff, and just kind of like, it's sort of like a hiatus in the middle to say, things are different now. And
And how's it received?
Amazing.
In general?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So the coolest part for me is I used to want to get up there and I wanted everybody to see me and love me. Right. And I wanted to get off stage and be adored, and I wanted girls to come love on me. And now truly, when I get up on stage, I'm excited about playing, but I'm more excited about telling people that I've found faith and that it's Jesus and that it's changed my life. And if you want to talk about it, I'll be at the merch table after the show. And so that's like my favorite time the whole night. Tell them that they're loved, that I'm loved. That's the love of Christ. And then meet me at the merch table. And then I go sit there at the merch table and wait for people to come up and open up. A lot of people will come up and just start like crying and telling me stuff. And some people just come up and say, thanks for saying what you said. Thanks for being honest. And other people, will pray over me or stuff like that. So as far as it's been really well received. I mean, if it hasn't been well received, I'm not getting those notes or that mail.
That's what I found. Most people don't come up, wait in line to tell you how much they don't like it.
They hate you. Well, that's not, they do it online.
Yeah.
They troll your Facebook page to tell you that you suck.
So did you ever want to go to Nashville? Just changing the subject. Did you ever want to go?
Oh yeah.
Have a record deal? And
absolutely. Me and Jens went. We took his 1987 Suburban. We dressed up in our blue jean outfits, and Jens with cowboy boots and a cowboy hat's like over 7 foot tall.
That's a big man.
So he had a 1987 square body Suburban, and we drove that thing from Austin to Nashville. I think we spent $600 or $700. That was back in the late 90s on gas.
On gas, yeah.
And we I can't remember exactly how it all played out. We had 1 or 2 publishing companies that were going to let us, come give them the CD. And I was thinking this would be it. You just walk in and give them the CD and you get a deal. And she put the record on, and it was a song called The Preacher, and it's Jens playing. And then I start singing, and there's a lot of words in the first verse. And she listened to the first verse, and then she hit stop and eject and handed me back the CD. And she's like, too many words. And I was like, Okay.
What?
There's
what
like
else?
9 more, 11 more songs on there. You want to try any other? She goes, I don't need to listen to anything else. And I was like, well, would you mind listening to one more song? We came a long way. And she's like, okay. So she put in like a slow love song that I thought was one of the best written ones on there. And she's like, yeah, no, it's just not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Lucky you, man. At least you got honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, that talent can string you along on the other stuff too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
the honest part's good.
yeah. So that was it. We left, and then we went home and wrote Nashville Blues, and then that encouraged a bunch of the fans to chant Nashville sucks.
Yeah.
We recorded it, and then we put it on the record, and then we made t-shirts out of it. And that's our biggest selling item.
I remember when all that was
t-shirts.
going on.
Still, that's my shtick. Ray
So
Wyatt.
what are you doing now? Like just playing, how many shows you play this year?
We try to do about 100 and try to do
Mhm.
about a 60-40 split between 60 full band, 40 acoustics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing every chance that I get with the acoustics, I make them testimony shows. And so, just depending on where I'm at, it's part of the show. And it's just, I'm kind of going in that direction. Full band shows different, we do our old stuff and try to keep people excited, because there's that thing that we have that's really cool, is like we get to be part of the soundtrack of people's lives.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like the coolest honor when people say, I came to see you this year at this place, and you're playing this song, and I played this song at my wedding, and and you were with me when I floated down the river, and I listened to these songs, and it's just like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
Like your memory lane has me woven in it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So we do a lot of that, fairs and festivals and things, but we still, Green Hall and Luckenbach and Billy Bob's and things like that are still on the roster.
We've known each other, what, 20?
How long has it been?
95?
It had to be at least that. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe 96 when I first
26
got in
years.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been really a pleasure watching your journey. I mean, it's been interesting, but more interesting in other times than not.
Yeah.
But
Thanks, man.
Watching your songwriting and just you as a man, and knowing a little bit about some of those issues we talked about. I remember seeing it in your face.
Yeah.
And hearing it in your songs, and now fast forward the last few years, every time I see you, I'm like, well, he turned into a man. It's great.
Thanks, man.
Really proud of you, man.
Those therapy sessions with each song and each album, that's like, I basically used each album to be a historical therapy session for me, to kind of help me work it all out. So it's the content in the last 10 years is generally a little more upbeat.
Well, it's also a little more interesting.
When
you talked about finding out that all you needed to do was tell the truth, that was there the whole time. Didn't have to make it up. And I'm glad.
And I didn't really have anything to do with it.
I hear it in your songs. I see it when you sing. I can tell that there's nothing, you're not judging yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have a tendency to beat myself up.
We all do.
And do that. But I've been surrounded. God's put some really amazing people in my life, and some really beautiful men of God that support me, encourage me, and lift me up, and they won't let me stay down on myself. So they just keep reminding me of what I know to be true. Because that old self and those old lies that I would tell myself, they're always creeping in there, trying to keep me down and beat me down and make me, put me into a hole. And it's just a battle that you've got to fight every day. And so I'm trying to find new habits and trade old habits for new habits, and recognize that I need habits. But I gotta start finding things that are good for me and good for my family.
Yeah. Hey, Toe, you got that whiskey?
Yeah, I got the pot. I got some coke.
I brought the cocaine.
Thank you. Cory Morrow, everybody.